Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Astropub. My name is Paul, Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender who's looking a little yellow for some reason. Set my properties here. So there. That's why. Go. Ta-da! All right. Yeah, dual streaming. What do you mean, Two Panzer? I stream on both YouTube and Twitch. Yes. I find some people who watch on Twitch don't want to watch on YouTube, and those people who watch on YouTube don't want to watch on Twitch. So I do both. Try to pay attention to both too. So I'm trying to coordinate stuff with my guests for the captain's table later. Oop. Hopefully you can do both. That's fine. Oh, St. Paul, it's raining hard here in in Austin. Is it down here as it is down here in San Antonio? Yes, yes, it is. I've seen some images in other parts of Texas. So yeah, it's pretty much all of Hill Country is getting inundated. I got all my people down there to check in. Yeah, I've got a little bit of it here. Where I live is not, it's not in any danger. On top of that, as Jen, you should probably know about the Rain Dome, the Austin Rain Dome, where it's going to be bad in Austin. It is bad in Austin, but it's not like the end of the world apocalypse like it is in like Barton. Daytrix Gaming, that's a new name. Welcome. How you doing, Radar? Let me leave, please. There we go. Or Kerrville, yeah. Kerrville's basically gone. I'd laugh, but... It's bad enough that where I live, which is literally on a hill, I'm fine. But Cam and I were going to go shopping this morning for breakfast, before breakfast, and we both were like, we don't know if the roads are going to be safe for us to drive on. So like, we're fine, and we'll probably be fine long term, but power is not a guarantee. And the roads aren't a guarantee in terms of leaving here. Yeah, no FEMA.
Welcome to the ASOP Vehicle Retrieval System.
What should I do? Just some trading missions. I'll do that. That'll be fine. This is the.
Please visit
Yeah, I'll do.
Welcome to the ASOP Vehicle Retrieval System.
Let's go pull a Star Lancer. I'm not going to get too much into that Shadow Stalker, but yeah, that's exactly the problem. Don't complain about services not being accurate when you took a chainsaw to the services. Let's cut the budget for making roads. Why do the roads all shit? I don't fucking know. I wonder why. It's something I experience on the regular as a teacher. You cut the education budget, and someone goes, "Why is education shit?" I don't fucking know. Maybe because you don't even let us. You don't even. We have to buy our own fucking supplies, and you chase every passionate teacher out of the profession, and. I'm not gonna get too deep into that because at a certain point, people are just gonna get super pissed off about it. Nah, a lot of the people who are getting hurt are just people who are just trying to live their lives. I know you know Squadron next year. Yes. Yeah, it's not something I'd like to have to dance around because, like everybody in the universe, I have a more nuanced opinion on everything than people usually give it credit for. And in the kind of the world we live in today, it's basically so we can't have a conversation because if you try to have a nuanced conversation about anything, someone's like, you're either literally a Nazi or you're literally a communist. And it's like, can politics just be the thing that we do to fix the problems we have, please? Please? No. It must be about whether or not you like dicks or not. That's politics, right? I'm going to stop it there because I'm going to go into a rant and I'm going to piss off a lot of people.
Landing gear up.
No, I get it. Truly end of an era. Ozzy Osbourne performed his last show today. Oh. Maybe the apocalypse is near. All right. Let's do some missions. The frustrating part is that politics doesn't have to be done. Oh, I could have done that one. Oh, that's a rookie. Nah, I can't do those because those ones are always broken. Which sucks because it's the biggest payout one. Yeah, we'll do the Magnus to Everest. Got full tank, so we're good. Saw on Twitter today about the Saber again, about how it's not in Squadron 42. My response was, my brother in Wicklow, we saw 42s using Saber in the Battle of Vega. So I'm partially to blame for that because I mentioned specifically the Saber wasn't in Squadron 42. And during my Navy, ships of the Navy and the UE Navy video, people called that out. And so I, specifically in this next video that is going to be releasing next week when I'm out at Quantum Vegas, that I highlight the problem with the Saber is that it is flying with the 42s in Squadron 42 prologue, but the lore still states that the Saber is not actually in active service with the UE Navy. It's still in discussion. So Saber is likely not going to be in Squadron 42 in terms of like the game. It won't be a ship you can fly. It's CIG's fault. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. CIG's got a lot of things they didn't do properly. But they're not wrong that the Saber is likely not going to be in Squadron 42. Other than in the background. Has anyone told CIG their outpost cargo is broke? Yes. Apparently, over the next 3 patches, CIG's, or the next 2 major patches, they're going to look at the freight elevators and see how they can fix them. So, the Saber makes sense for Squadron 42 because Squadron 42 is a special snowflake, and they get all of the special snowflake gear, you know, like the experimental F8 and the experimental F7 that Doc and Cal, respectively, fly. Is that Elliot's department? I thought Elliot was mostly missions. I will say, after watching that Star Citizen live, I'm very happy to hear that who they got for loot. The loot manager, because literally he was the one, Luke was the one who invented loot in Star Citizen and actually has worked closely with the community and content creators over the last several years. So he's one of those people who you don't see a lot. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's very important in terms of his experience and his time. My first time back since 4.0 dropped, and I'm very impressed after taking 6 months off. I would suggest most people do that. Like, if you're a fan of Star Citizen and you want to have the best experiences, play like 2 to 3 times a year. Like, around Invictus, sometime in the summer, like July, August, and around IAE, like between October and November. Because if you play 3 times a year, you will see how better the game has become in those leaps and bounds, because as players like myself who play the game basically every week, sometimes every day, you're so close to the game that when the major changes happen, it doesn't feel like a major change. You don't really see the major differences. No, yeah, we all adored Elliot. I'm actually thinking, because I keep saying there's a term, I don't remember where the term came from. It might be from theater, where I keep saying I'm going to give somebody flowers or give someone roses, which is just a term for saying I'm going to give you your praise before I give you something, some critique. And I'm thinking of actually getting flowers sent to Elliot at his office with a note saying, "We give you a lot of shit, but we appreciate what you do. P.S. Stop with the fucking choke points. I swear to God, Elliot." So literally giving Elliot his flowers. Nobody tell him. What, giving your wife flowers? It's always a good idea. Well, I understand the need to take a break. It's what I'm looking for in Spice and Dune right now. It's the reason why I've been playing Mecca Break. Holy shit. I gotta say, Mecca Break has a kernel of a good idea for a story. It's a classic sci-fi mecha story. But the dialogue is shit. The writing is shit. It's clearly an amateur approach to it, written by somebody who either isn't a good translator or just there's a lot of repetitious discussions and stuff like that. But what it lacks in story, it makes up for in gameplay. Dear God, did those developers learn how to make a fun game? And it's clear, absolutely clear, that they had a great idea for a mech extraction shooter. And then they added a 6v6 because it was a fun little addition. It feels very Destiny inspired almost. They did what most games do, which is they had the concept of an idea and then they came up with sort of a background for why these things would exist. I'll give you the briefest of breakdowns. I'm probably going to do a lore video on it just as a fun little side project, which is probably going to be, 20 minutes long, which is effectively there are 3 major nations on Earth, and then there's the moon. And the moon is currently fighting with the Earth because they want liberation, freedom, whatever. They don't like Earth. And the players play as representatives from each of those 3 nations. And in the process of the moon assaulting one of the Earth's major space stations, they release Korite onto the planet. Korite is a substance that's been used to make these breakers, the mechas, themselves, and maybe even as a power source. And the Korite has been spreading like a virus across all of Earth and destroying entire countries, especially as one place where most of the station fell to. Which is where you go to do your little extraction shooter content. Space is for the space noids. Yes, it's very, very Gundam in the sense that you have the outer space oppressed minority versus the Earth's. So it's a little bit of Gundam meets Tiberium. Yes, Tiberium Wars. Yes, it's very Tiberium Wars. And
you are blocking an active flight lane. Please.
Fuck off, ATC. Yeah, it's got a little bit of Eureka 7 in there. It's got a little bit of Evangelion, and even a little bit of Pacific Rim in there, because like the group you fight for is known as Shadow, and the Shadow is a multinational group of people run by the scientists who first discovered Korite and actually built the first breakers, which was I believe the Alisnus is the first breaker that they built with Korite, and is responsible for the spread of Korite and is trying to fix the problem that they created. This is PU. European hardware enjoyer, welcome. So it's a very classic background, and it's clear they came up with some of these ideas just as the core, no pun intended, of the gameplay concepts. So they came up this way as they came up with the gameplay. And then they mostly focused on the gameplay aspect of it. The monthly report's going to be released. My video of it is going to be released on Sunday. But yeah, there is the second mention of dynamic server meshing this last month. The Ironclad seems to be going to be, it's probably going to take longer. It's probably not going to be released this year, but the Perseus is, the Apollo is, even the Paladin is. So there's a lot of discussions on weather. Simon, you asked that question during the you asked the same question on Thursday, and I gave you the same answer. I'll give you the same answer. Star Citizen is not going to be using AI technologies. Not in some sort of moralistic sense, but because of the expense and the actual utility that it has. The captain's table today is going to be Ferrister, Red Monster, and a newer face named Captain MD13. So I'll go over it again. I don't know, since if you missed it, the one when I talked about it, I will say this: the problem with AI technologies as it currently stands is that they're expensive to maintain. And I don't just mean that in money, I also mean it in terms of storage space. There is a mod for Skyrim, which basically puts ChatGPT into Skyrim. So it basically powers all of the AI, the NPCs in the game. That file alone is like 250 gigs. It's bigger than the entirety of Star Citizen's file base. So for Star Citizen to do something similar, it would probably take up at least that, if not more, space. They also wouldn't want to just import ChatGPT or another API. They'd probably want to take an LLM model and then train it themselves using their own data that they had. So like writers would write up a bunch of dialogue and stuff like that. And that process is expensive because you also have to hire developers who specifically work in that sort of field. Yeah, to give you context, Skyrim is like 500, it's like less than a gigabyte. Base Skyrim is less than a gigabyte of information. And now, of course, there will be optimizations. You could probably optimize some of that stuff and those sorts of things. This is just a mod, which isn't very optimized. Around what year do I see AGI happening? Not with current LLMs. I don't think AGI happens with current LLMs because I also don't believe we understand sentience well enough. This is the problem where philosophy meets science, because some people believe that like LLMs are already sentient and like have artificial general intelligence, but they're not. It's a Chinese box. On one hand, it's a huge file. On the other hand, getting roasted by Dagother is hilarious. I've seen that. Those are great. Those are fun. The 3 editions of Skyrim I have range from 8 gigs to 14 gigs. Okay, it's a little bit bigger than I thought. I remember there was being like, it was like 500 kilobytes or something like that. Maybe I'm thinking of Oblivion. But yeah, it's still tiny in comparison. Tie my shoelaces? No. I will trip. Maybe, but quantum computers are not going the same as normal computers. Basically, quantum computers as we have right now are very hyper specialized. And I may be wrong in this. I'm not an expert at this. This is just my experience with I'm just doing trading evil, so. But from my understanding of quantum computers, because of the nature of how quantum states are, you have to program a quantum computer for a very specific task. Because once it does its job, you can't like reprogram it, because you've got to reprogram the whole of the like quantum side of things. The reality is that I don't think we know enough about human psychology and how the brain functions to fully create an AGI that would be like humanity. Because like there's a book called The Gift of Fear. Good book, I'd suggest reading it, which talks about how while fear is something we all hate, it was essential to our survival. But it's not a rational survival instinct because it's easily tricked. And how fear effectively evolved our psyche to what it is today. It's allowed for like art and music and lots of things like that. My wife got it because she was interested in that sort of thing, and I read it after her. It's a good book. And this is just from my very uneducated, experienced like perspective. I am not a philosophy person. I'm not big into philosophy. It is one of the few social sciences that I'm just like, I don't know why you're here. I get you, but I just, what? I believe that to create sentience, you need emotion. And like empathy and fear and like depression. Like the joke of Marvin from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like I unironically believe the only way we're going to have a robot is if it gets to, I only believe the way I believe that we will have AGI, that a robot has become AGI, is if said robot gets depression, is diagnosed with depression. Or some other sorts of like cognitive faculty diminishing thing, you know, like addiction. Yeah, we don't really understand sentience at all. We don't know why we are different from other people, and it's one of those things that like scientists even discuss. Like one of the problems or solutions to the Fermi paradox, to a degree. Fermi is not really talking about this, but is we're not looking for the right thing. We don't find aliens because intelligence doesn't look like what we look like. What we could think of as intelligence is not what the other intelligent species might. I say that as a philosophy graduate. We don't know why we are different from plain matter. Yeah. Thank you for not taking offense to my, I don't understand philosophy very well. Well, that's the other thing. You got your sauce last night? Nice. Yeah, I got mine before I went to bed. I got like 1501 mission credits, and I immediately was like, bye. I'm going to use all my mission credits. Good. But like, this is something that like genuinely fascinates me about it, because as somebody who right now is mostly a hobby, writes science fiction novels, the idea behind artificial intelligence it fascinates me, because typically, in my opinion, artificial intelligence is just going to be a reflection of us. So, like, my favorite rendition of AI is Futurama. Because that makes the most sense to me. Bender is a robot, but he's just a human who happens to be in a robotic shell. He drinks, he smokes, he commits crimes. Charles Sheaf is a scientific journalist with great books and understanding quantum mechanics and things like relativity. Also, the first time I understood some infinites are better than bigger than others. I'll have to read some of his books. Fun story about Neuromancer. Did you know? I forgot the writer of Neuromancer. You'll probably tell me, but I read an interview with him a long time ago about the book, and he doesn't understand science. He's a scientist to a degree, but he wasn't a programmer. He didn't understand computers when he wrote that. So he was simply he had friends who were computer hobbyists in the 80s. So he took some of what they were talking about and then just sort of imagined it as how it might be. So a lot of our ideas of things like, I think even the term cyberspace comes from Neuromancer. I might be wrong on that one, but like he imagined like it as an actual physical plane rather than being just a digital one. Yes, he created the term cyberpunk, yeah. Yeah. You do too, Luna. It's a hobby until I get paid for it, then it's a profession. Do you want to dance? Hey, Toes! Welcome everyone from Space Tomato Stream. My name is Paul, Berserker 01, Batman Shell, your humble host and space bartender here at the Astropub, your space bar at the end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. How y'all doing?
You can take away my spaceship.
Spaceship.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers.
No pew-pews.
But you can never,
ever
take away my space game.
Simon__Wolf has subscribed.
Thank you so much for becoming a Twitch Prime sub there, Simon Wolf. You're very important, public, very precipice, very pedestrian. This is your fault. You turn drinking night shots and cheers and check out shop. But to answer your question there, Simon, the fundamental question we're asking before we would go on the AGI and shit like that is CIG just won't be able to, they won't work with AI. Not because of, like I said, out of some moral reasoning, but just because the cost and time commitment to doing it the way that they would want to preserve their own IP would be so big that it's just not worth the effort when they already have 5 writers on staff. They're already struggling to get the content they have now into the game without being too expensive in terms of like databases. Hey, I actually bought your wife's book. It's a good book. You should read it. My wife is a professional author. She writes novels for as a not as a hobby, but as a part-time job. Have you seen of Orc or our theory of consciousness? It says consciousness may be emergent from quantum phenomena. Ooh, interesting. I'll take a look at that. Gross Space Tomato and his cronies. You gave this man a sword, Space Tomato? That's what I was saying, Alex, was like, the problem is that what we understand as intelligence may be nothing compared to what actually exists. Hey, that sword gives me the power of talking shit. So, because Tomato is coming in and is talking about, we are going to be talking about the state of industry. I did not imagine what we were going to be talking about before, but when Red Monster said, I want to talk, Red Monster gave me a list of things that they want to talk about. And it deals with things like mining, salvage, refining, the economy itself, how Wicklow works, the exploits, things like the cargo elevators, all that sort of thing. So, like, what's going on, what's going right, what's going wrong, and what should CIG do in the future? You're NF sci-fi and you get pretty heavy into philosophy. That's what I've discovered. Like, I'm about 3 chapters into this book that I'm writing, and one of the things I'm setting up for is a religion, and being a history person and social sciences person, I wanted to make it at least believable enough. So not like super world building details, but sort of like lay out the principles, the basics. And I stumbled upon a video which talked about Plato's cave analogy. And I'd read the Republic. I actually read the Republic growing up for fun because I'm that stupid. And I remembered it, but I was sort of right. I didn't realize the full extent of what Plato's cave analogy is. For most people who don't know, the cave analogy is take a bunch of people who only knew a cave and chain them up in a cave watching a wall. And they see flames, like light and shadows dancing in front of them as they're facing this wall. And it's the only thing they know. So what happens if one person gets out of that's the reality to them. What happens if one person gets out of that and discovers that what they were seeing was fire and shadows? And then what happens if that person manages to escape the cave? What happens if somebody who is that same person who's been in a cave their whole life finally sees the light and it's too overpowering? What happens when their eyes finally adjust and they see the world around them? And I thought, okay, so it's sort of like an analogy of like we're stuck in our own perspectives, and like we have to, if we escape those perspectives, we become more aware of the wider world around us. But I didn't know that was actually the basis of Plato's philosophy, that to understand the universe, we need to escape this, but it takes years. Like Plato thought it would take like 50 years to fully understand what truth actually was. It's all about the journey of understanding the universe around you. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So I incorporated that into the philosophy of that religion. So yeah. What was your favorite breakfast as a boy? That's a good question. I love eggs. Bacon and eggs. Still have it as my my special weekend breakfast with me and my wife. Yeah, but I mean, the video is about how a lot of people get it wrong. They think it's like Neo in the Matrix, where like they find out that the cave is a lie and immediately are like, you know, I'm enlightened now. But like in reality, Plato is more like, you're not enlightened. You just crawled out of a cave and you're staring at the world for the first time. You don't know shit. Everything around you doesn't make any sense because you've never experienced it. So you have to understand it. The journey is to understand what that world is. But by the time you come back to crawl in and explain it to the rest of the people there, they won't fucking understand. They don't have the context to understand what you just saw. I'm gonna hurt you, Aiden. I'm sorry. This isn't intentional, but I don't think the Ironclad's coming this year. Breakfast pizza is really good, but I never growing up, I never really had breakfast pizza. I also never really liked cereal. I had cereal in the past. I'm gonna go use the restroom real quick, but I had cereal in the past, but I was never really a big fan. Ironically, I think my favorite cereal was Not Raisin Bran. Can't remember the name of it. I think granola. Don't say to me things like that. I'm sorry, but like based off of the last monthly report, they're still fucking with the kits for it. Whereas like the Perseus is going through its gray box release, its gray box review this next month. So it's going to be heading into Laud 0 by August and, you know, probably final art by November. Hot take, the Ironclad is not going to match the expectations laid upon it. Well, none of them will. But yeah, I never liked the sugary cereal. I liked like Raisin Bran and those sorts of things. I'll be right back.
Weapons free, y'all.
Two words. Distress bacon.
Drugs.
Stand by for Titanfall.
Oh, the Ironclad's coming next year, for sure. Well, the only way that they can justify these cargo sizes is by increasing the amount of cargo that is available. That is my other concern, is that
Hello, and thank you for coming.
is that we're going to end up with a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, hold on, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, we're going to end up with a year which doesn't have new additions to the game, like engineering and stuff like that. I know engineering is in preview, or not in preview, will be in preview, probably before the end of the year for sure. But the fact that there has been little to no updates, I mean, we've seen updates in monthly reports, but we haven't really seen the updates in terms of the forward-facing player side of things. And because of the nature of how things work now with CIG, in terms of their how they do features, basically, if we don't see it end up on the roadmap roundup, it's not coming. And they will only know if it's going to be on the roadmap roundup, or if it's going to come on the roadmap roundup if it's within like weeks before it actually shows up. So we know that 4.3 had its roadmap roundup start, and there is no indication of that being in there. So what's the point of having ships you can haul that size when one ship can buy all the available stock on the server? Yeah, it's another problem. Oh yeah, I gotta drink in game. Thank you. Also, like, one of the major features of the Assault is its repair bay. What's the point of having the Assault if you can't even repair ships or repair vehicles? They could give the Ironclad twin Idris railguns or laser beams on a fucking turret It's still going to fall short of expectations. Yeah. What are you looking for? Are you looking forward to the RSI Meteor? What are your expectations? Or do you care to make concerning about it? I think it's going to be the best heavy fighter you've ever seen. It will blow everyone out of the water. It'll be one of the best ships ever made by CIG in terms of performance. And everyone will love it and hate it. And then in 4.3, it will get nerfed into the fucking ground. And everyone will get mad that they spent $300 on a ship that was only good for a month. This is the reason why it's actually not a good idea to buy ships in Star Citizen. Especially when they first come out. I do think it'll be a fine ship for what it is, and I'm sure people who like the Mantis aesthetic, who've been wanting a ship like the Mantis for the Mantis, but just in a different like version of it, will enjoy seeing the Mantis grow out of its origin. But I do think that it's important to slap a big buyer beware on that. It's almost like you've seen this happen before. Here's the thing. I don't think it's intentional at all on CIG's part. I don't think they're making it super overpowered so they can sell more. I think what they're doing is putting it in there with what testing they have. And then once they have more extensive testing of what's going on, then they use that information and then dial it back to try to balance it. Because they don't always do that. Sometimes ships come in underpowered and then end up becoming overpowered. And, back and forth. It's just the nature of balancing. If you're going to buy a ship, buy it off of what it looks like or what its role is. Nothing else. I think they'll sell building appearances, but not the buildings themselves. What do you mean? Oh, you're talking about like with base building. I don't think CIG will monetize base building like that. I do think that they may sell aesthetic packs, but they have to get crafting to work in that way, and they seem to indicate that that's what they want to do. Thank God. That SCL was so rewarding to hear when CIG, they said, hey, we're going to use crafting to separate the paints from your armor and your weapons from the armor and weapons themselves. So now we actually will have weapons and armor paints that you can then apply and remove from various pieces of armor and kit. It's like, thank God. It's what we've been wanting forever. We can talk about whatever, Red. Like I'm mostly gonna me personally, I want to talk a little bit about trading and like how that works and how like the freight elevators are fucking shit. And so like at least a third of all of the missions that are available for stuff like I'm doing right now just don't work. I wanted to hear your thoughts on mining, because especially with the changes, the hovering mechanics with mining and the lack of mining missions, how salvage is functioning, how what's the other one? Oh, I didn't think about refining, but also the economy. Yeah. Yeah, I saw your DM. Well, like literally when the changes came in, people are coming to my feed saying Red Monster's talking about how mining is going to be completely a lot harder now because of the hover changes. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'd love to hear a discussion about comparing UEV Navy to real Navy compositions. I'd probably do that at some point. Yeah, Red Monster, Ferrister, and They're newer because I looked them up. They were in the stuff. Captain MD-13. I think Captain MD-13 is part of the Anzia, the racing crew. But I'm sure they do other things. Oh, Ian, a discussion. We can talk about it at some point for sure. He's a regular in my streams. He's part of my org. Okay, yeah. There we go. Speaking of real world comparisons, my favorite is the fucking the Hawk. The Hawk is the most wild ass ship that the UEE has. To give you the comparison, the idea, the Hawk is like if you took a little bird and said, and the army was like, I want this little bird to be able to support ground operations, do some light transporting, and also, you see that Su-27 up there? Go fucking dogfight that. Go kill it. Like, what? We're going to talk about quantum. Yes. Yeah, of course. Also make it look like an actual bird. Yeah. It's a wild ass ship. I legitimately also am happy. For those of you who don't know, hacking got a mention in the June monthly report, or the May monthly report, not the June monthly report. And I legitimately think that CIG, because I can't have been the only one who suggested this, but they took up the suggestion to turn hacking into a cyberpunk deck. It sounds like that's what they're doing, and I'd love for it to be true. So CIG are tweaking the Kraken. What is the most needed tweak for the existing design, and why is a through deck to ground cargo elevator? I mean, they're gonna kind of have some of that. They did say that they wanted to change it so that like you could actually store ships inside the Kraken's hangar. So they needed an elevator that would take the ship down from the deck into like a hangar or something like that. That is so much cooler than any design they could have had. They could have had. Imagine now only the way to be immune to hacking is to use ballistic weapon with no HUD or assets or assists. Well, the idea being like, because the way they talk about it is now there's going to be a program you use which will have special effects. So when you're accessing something, you'll have to have a specific like program that's designed for a specific task. So because you don't know what security is where you're going, you need to have a deck, and maybe your deck is limited to a handful of programs. So you have to guess what programs are going to be on each location. And you can easily just color code them, you know, red, blue, green, black, white, yellow, orange, and each of those colors corresponds to a specific program. So to beat an orange defense program, you need an orange hacking program. Yeah, I think a ground to flight deck elevator makes sense. Because you're going to want to be able to transport vehicles on the top deck as well. Now, don't take that as 100% gospel, because they were very vague on what they were talking about with hacking. But it seems like that's what they were talking about. Rather than their Pac-Man weird game, it seems more like a Simon Says sort of matching program. Hey, Paul, I don't recall if I ever shared a story here. One of my favorite things about Star Citizen I have encountered was I was flying my Caterpillar around Daymar to Porto back when you could buy booze on Daymar. It was making millions. I just sold some booze at a mining station and bought a load of material to haul off somewhere else. And there was a pack of like a mole and then two prospectors with a pair of arrows on cap. One of them flew over to me and escorted me out of Masslock range, rocked his wings, and then went over to the top and dived back to the surface. Coolest shit ever. That's nice. That's awesome. What would be nice, and this is probably just an idea for a future CIG endeavor. I think I'm probably rocking on something. Kind of. Hey, what's wrong with it's I'm just like finding the irony in, because I was very against the Pac-Man minigame for hacking, because I was like, you know, that's stupid. I don't want to just play Pac-Man to hack. I want to feel like I'm hacking. And then I realized that the thing I had suggested was just Simon Says. It's like, but I think it makes a little bit more sense when you couch it in terms of this program is specifically designed to counter these softwares, you know. Pre-written stuff. And like, I went a little bit further than that. I also thought, and this would probably be good for crafting, is being able to craft your own programs which have specific combo details. Like you could get a red-yellow combo, which isn't as powerful as an individual red or yellow. But if you're dealing with low-level red or yellow programs, you could just have one of those combos in there, and it would deal with most low-level programs of that color. Yeah, and then you just have levels. So you have like red 1 through 5 and yellow 1 through 5. And so each like program also has different security difficulties. You're playing in Computer Magic the Gathering with hacking cards to reduce the security system's life point to 0. Effectively, yeah. For me, that's a little bit more immersive, and it also falls along the lines of what 80s science fiction, which inspired Star Citizen in the first place, was all about. You know? That neuromancer shit. Green, yellow, orange, red, 1 through 5. Yeah. But because it's colors, you could just start adding in as many colors as you want, as long as they're distinct enough for players to understand the difference of, like cyan. And you could increase the complexity of any sorts of hacking stuff. Novels are a specific book type made with an extended narrative of stories and has been published. A novel is simply the length of a book. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's that it's been published. Plenty of people have wrote novels that weren't published. Novels is a nature of its length, not whether it's published or not. Like there's short stories, novellas, and novels. They're usually word count is the main thing. What's the benefit? What benefit is there to unloading storage manually? Faster. But for this one, you can't actually do automatic unloads with the missions, so you have to do them manually. Yeah, I guess you should see what they did there, Simon. There's plenty of published authors who have novels that they wrote and never published. I'd love for the hacking to be on the level of stuff you do in Hacknet, but we're not going to see Hacknet stuff. It's not as good, you know. I'm going to write an Andor-style novel about Hurston. Workers Unite. Yes. There we go. So if we're not going to see super immersive actual hacking in terms of Star Citizen, it makes sense to be able to have something that is complicated enough that you can specialize in, but complicated enough that you can specialize in, but not so complicated that it would make it difficult for a bit difficult barrier to entry. I don't think we'll see a nameable Perseus. No, they seem to still have issues with that. The idea of reaching manufacturer-specific folders and subroutines and so on is the dream, the very dream. That would be the idea of the different colors, each color corresponding to a different subroutine or counter program or whatever. It should take at least as much skill as mining Quantanium. Yeah. Which is why you put a timer attached to it, and you have to match the colors to the right colors, and the colors also have to have the right security level, and you can do it as a tree, right? You do it as like 5 options to start. You have to investigate each one to figure out what program it is, and there's a timer that goes in. Okay, so we're going to use this program to investigate which are. Okay, so this one is red, this is blue, this is yellow, this is level 1, 2, and 3, and then you have to choose which ones you pick. That would be my ideal. I don't think that's how they're going to do it, but something like a cyber deck would be cool. That is not as the husband of a woman who is actually published with a novel and got it published and is available on that, Barnes and Noble and Amazon. That is not the definition that novel has ever been held to. Whatever links you're looking at are incorrect. The definition of novel is mostly its word count, which is to separate it from novella, which is a shorter novel, but it's longer than a short story. Now, there's no 100% hard rule of how long a novel needs to be, but in terms of word count, there's a suggested amount, but there's definitely a minimum amount. So if you're finding things that says no mention of word count, then that's fundamentally flawed. I'm not always gentle with the cargo. Sometimes I just yeet it around. The way you describe this idea, it sounds very similar to how it goes with program activation and hacknet goes, but it's very, which I'd be very on board with. It would be less text-based and more visual-based. I could see something like that working only because it would also include crafting, because you could craft these programs with the right tools and research. No word count, but probably correct. A work of fiction, intermediate in length and complexity between a short story and a novel. In terms of novella, yeah. But that's my point is that a novel, it doesn't have to be published in order for it to be a novel. A novel is simply a descriptor of the length of a work, not its status as a published work or not. The wrong button here? There we go. Two levels of hacking, those instant hacks tools that just have a timer for those who aren't excited about hacking, and the hardware simulator hacking experiences, more determined to master. Yeah, I can see something like that. Though you'd have to change the tools from being just a card to being a little bit bigger, I think. But yeah. Like albums versus EP, yeah. You just need to make hacking an actual gameplay loop that's not just stick a card in and you're done. And also lock you out of certain aspects. Though, I mean, if you aren't interested in hacking, why are you hacking? It needs to be interesting enough to have people go, I would like to do this. You know? Give the hackers a gameplay loop that feels engaging and entertaining. That's effectively it. If you're going to have a hacking ship, like, you know, specifically Legionnaire, but also that mentions the idea of doing e-warfare with other ships like the Sentinel and the Herald, then yeah, it's gotta it's got to be engaging. You gotta want to have to do it. Question: do you think engineering will end up disappointing everyone if it makes big ships hard to solo, or doesn't somebody solo, or if it doesn't, somebody ends up upset? No matter what, people are going to be pissed off about it. I don't think everyone's going to be mad about it. I think a lot of people are just going to be mad because it exists. Do another run real quick, and then we'll be done. Yeah, that is just Star Citizen. Welcome to games. quite frankly. Gaming communities are all about that sort of over expectation for something. Should CIG take control of the Idris's main weapon away from the pilot eventually? Yes. It should be a gunnery officer should be responsible for it. I also think that there should be a power buildup requirement where it's not just set power here, but you have to move power to the main weapon, which will cause it to charge up and then fire. And then when it fires, it will draw power from something else, and you have to wait for it to recharge, or at least charge up a capacitor to do it. The flesh is weak; only the machine spirit is strong enough to endure. Praise the Omnissiah. That's just adding a person that has no value to the ship, though. A big ship should be about power projection and multiplication, not negation. There should still require a certain number of people to be able to operate it. That's like saying we shouldn't have to force to be operating the main guns on the other guns on the Idris. It's like there always should be people who are required to operate those things. Like the King ship, like the wave motion gun, some sort of like aspect of managing those powers. Exactly. Some sort of sequence. Charge the capacitor, fire the gun, the capacitor is drained, recharge the capacitor, and fire again. Yeah, but is that person adding value? If they're the ones who can control the gun, yeah. So you don't have to swap between the main pilot and the gunner to be able to fire. They're adding value. Just like if the person who's operating the torpedoes in a Polaris adds value, even though that's their only job, but it doesn't have to be their only job if power management or other things can happen as well. Easily that person could double as a Marine as well, a gunnery officer. Or that they're literally the gunnery officer in the sense that they're the ones who are instructing people to target specific targets who are on the guns, and then they're also in charge of manning the main guns. It's all up to how the players use that role rather than the role having to have a value. I'll give you an example. Pulsar, the Lost Colony. There are distinct roles for every crew member on your ship. The captain has a role, like mechanically, but most of their role is coordination. The gunner, the person who charges the guns, has a role. The science officer has the role because they also do like hacking and programs, stuff like that. The pilot has a role as well. And I want to say there might be an engineering position. I don't remember if there was or not. But they each have their own role to play. But the gunner is just firing the gun. That's all they do. They just fire a gun. But it's still a valuable role. The same thing happens in Jump Ship. Jump ship. I am the torpedo. Yeah. The goal that CIG needs to set out is to separate everything so that there is something for people to do that is balanced in a way that forces players to not just fly solo. They require other people. It's up to the players to determine how well they're going to utilize those roles. That's how we dealt with the Corvettes when we played Jump Ship, was just fire people out of a torpedo, out of their torpedo tubes at the Corvette and board them. Because they are so hard to beat in space-to-face combat. Yeah. Does anyone do a good guide as to how to recruit, train, and lead a great crew for capital ships in Star Citizen? Nope, because we don't really know the full gameplay loop yet. Also, Paul, target pinning is broken and it saddens me. That thing should be available as well. In Star Citizen, there needs to be somebody who's a radar operator. Like, multi-crew ships should have somebody whose dedicated role as a radar operator, so that they can target and pin targets, find and target the targets, and pin them for other people to use. As a scene in Star Trek 3, the Enterprise is jury-rigged like a bladed out Idris. She takes a shot at a Klingon and blows up out of her systems. Yeah. Just finished doing Stormbreaker with Space Tomato and GII. It's becoming increasingly notable to have dedicated roles within the groups: engineer, medics, troopers, etc. Yes. Like the radar intercept officer that the F-14s used to have. Yeah. To be honest, I think something that might be causing the pilot guns yes-no discussions is that all previous ships were small enough that pilot guns were necessary. Think fighters or reasonable, or reasonable, I don't know, bigger stuff, I guess. That with these first actual ships, where they're now starting to getting ships where pilots are actually just pilots, which they're not used to, it seems. I get it. I get what you're saying. Because, like, a captain's chair is pointless. There is no role in a captain. A captain is just there. So a lot of people right now are just going, well, there's no point in a captain. They're just going to be the pilot. But there is a role. As somebody who's played those multi-ship games before, even like the VR game for Star Trek Bridge Crew, and then the Star Trek, or the Pulsar, the captain's role is the decision maker. They're the coordinator. Their job is cat herder. Instruct the crew on what to do in a way that makes sense, that the crew can understand. By the time, with the crew that I built to do Pulsar, it included Grockies and HP Braincase and Texas Skulls and a couple other people. By the time we had finished, we had gotten to play the game, we started playing our third or fourth session, we learned exactly. We were such a well-coordinated team. We would jump out, we would scan a target. The second we knew it was a hostile, Rockies would send out without even me saying anything, he would be able to send out the viruses to just disable their shields, while the pilot and the gunner would work together to coordinate to figure out the maneuvering to hit it. Yeah. In the typical MMO sense, it's a raid boss. Not a raid boss, the raid leader. That's your role as a captain, as a raid leader. Your job is to be the brain that is keeping everyone alive. You're the brain on an Idris-sized Megazord. Exactly. You watched Neb's Gaming do a playthrough of it, and it was important to have a captain for sure. Yeah, and the thing is that the captain's role in like a game like Pulsar or Star Trek VR is very Bridge Crew VR was very limited. It wasn't nearly as like mechanically important, but it was super important in terms of like decision making and coordination. They typically had all of the information fed to them. Actually, I'm gonna back up a little bit. Someone did ask at the Bar Citizen if I could do a captain's table on big ships and like multi-crew big ships and that kind of stuff and like their roles and how they function. And I want to do that, but I want to sit down with Loken and I want to find other people who are interested in that sort of like multi-crew commanding gameplay. Because everyone says they want to be, everyone wants to be, you know, Kirk. And I think, most people don't want to be Kirk. As somebody who's played that role in multi-crew ship games, it fucking sucks. Because you are the one who makes the final decision because you're the one who gets all the information and can process it. Where everybody else is simply just focused on their roles. My common statement, as I said before, this ship is not a democracy. I am the captain. It's the worst job because, you know, when you fuck up, it's your fault. I am a space bartender, but I've had to moonlight as a captain every so often. And that's the struggle. People don't always vibe well. I mean, anybody who's done large raids in MMO and knows like a raid coordinator, like fleet coordinators in Eve, like you get it. Like you just don't have all the information. Someone whose job is to coordinate typically makes it their job to know everything that's around them so they can make the right call at the right moment. So we're seeing Red Monster, Ferrister, and Captain MD-13. All of them do you know, industry gameplay and such, and look at ships and other things like that. Ferrister famously. Tripped my shoelaces there. Yeah, we'll be talking about the industry, Star Citizen State of Industry. We're going to talk a little about the problem, the things that work, the things that don't work, things that can be improved. I used to run raids for top guilds and DDO for a long time, so you know what I'm talking about, Drago. What am I doing? It's not fun because everyone thinks they know better than you, or not everyone, but there's plenty of people who think they know better than you and will contradict you. And you don't have the time to sit down and explain to them exactly what's going on. But at the same time, if you know what you're doing well enough, you also know that certain people in your group will probably have better ideas at local level than you do. It's the old, in the military, it's the old officer NCO situation, you know? A lieutenant might have an idea of what's going on, but they're probably going to listen to their sergeant if a sergeant says, no, that's not what's going on here, we have this situation. Because typically sergeants are more experienced than lieutenants are, especially young lieutenants who are fresh out of college. It's all about not just knowing the right answer, but also knowing when you're wrong. Trusting the people who might know better than you. This is the current conversation the lore officers are having after Stormbreaker? Yeah. You need somebody to coordinate for very specific roles. And the problem about that is that as you specialize in things like these big roles, like these big events like Stormbreaker, you're going to get better at what you do, but it also means that your stuff is going to be limited. So like if in Stormbreaker, if I'm ICT command, right? If I'm the head of the ICT department, the group, you know, the Titan suit department, then my job is basically to sit there and stare at the wall for 90% of the mission. And every so often shoot people who are running around. And then the last 5 minutes of the mission, it's like super exciting, jumping around, fighting the big things. And, you know, then when you're done, you're done. Like, there's nothing else to do. Just patrol, but defend. As an IRL boat officer, the buck stops with the captain, but you need to lead better. You lead better with information and feedback from lower ranks also. Yeah, you get what I'm saying, Sharp. Lieutenants are just privates with a degree. Yeah, but they also have a little bit more position in the chain of command. You know, they have more experience in they have more experience in, I don't know how to say this properly. They have more experience in the bureaucracy bullshit than most people do. Yes. And a lot of that paperwork shit, it combines with like actually having to lead people out. You want to make sure that they trust you. But the problem is that, you know, most lieutenants are super young. So when your average sergeant is maybe the same age, if probably a little bit older, but has, you know, 4 to 6 years experience over the lieutenant, they're going to treat them a little differently. Yeah, that's true. A lot of people in Star Citizen aren't typically MMO players, are not used to working with the group or willing to give orders. There's a lot of military members in Star Citizen, though. And I think couching it in the context of military organization also helps, because like the captain of a ship, in this case, let's say like an Idris, you fucking listen to them. Why? Because they're going to be the people who know everything that they can. And you should trust, as a crew member, trust that the captain is doing everything they can to keep you alive and to keep you profitable. Lore officers have been trying to take up as much of the boring BS as possible, so there's fun for the rest of the group. Thank you for that. I don't mind doing some of that as well. I just need to have time for it. But there'll come a time where, you know, people in lore will want to do the boring stuff. Another reason for SCIMS to show why organization and group play works for those who aren't used to it. What is SCIMS? I play with a lot of industrial folk and some Chair Force guys. We all know cooperation communication is nice. Yes. Scrimmages. Watching paint dry just means I'm not getting shot. Yeah. There was a moment in Stormbreaker that we were doing with Lore, when Lore was doing it, where nothing was happening, and we were basically just fighting a bunch of NPCs were running around. And my thought was, God damn, this is nice. I don't have to look over my shoulder every 5 seconds in case something bad's happening. Example of the boring stuff: sitting in a ship from far from Lazarus, waiting to be called in for pickup. Yeah. But every now and then, you need me and Ghost to find a ship that just happens to be in nearby, and we commandeer it for the org with machine guns. You were there, Del. I think you were part of that expedition. We are the best non-pirate pirates that you can imagine. It's called
Thank you for contacting EDL Landing Assist.
it's called decision paralysis. When you have multiple different options and most people freeze. And it's so common that you can see it a lot in like just getting food. Walk up to a food place you've never been before, and you want to order some food. Unless you were studying the menu, and even if you were studying the menu, you may get up to the order and go, because you don't know what's good or not. As an FC and Eve, I'd have maps of the area we'll be working out and printed out on my desk so I can see not only where I was but everything around me at a glance. The lost art of preparation. It's one of the reasons why I know a lot of people were interested in Star Citizen, because it was going to be a planning game. I just wish there was more ways that you could prepare ahead of time. Like with a group, with a thing like Stormbreaker, to be able to like run through a build of the Stormbreaker Lazarus base, to be able to know the directions, to memorize all of the different routes and plan them out. Analysis paralysis, thank you. Kind of the vein of the Crossroads of Crime? Yeah. I don't worry, would always complain about my mangle not being up immediately. Mangle was the third button in my rotation. Bro, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait 3 seconds to throw 3 attacks before rend. No amount of staging and prep can survive some of the bugs. That's true, but in my experience, just from doing Stormbreaker, if I had known the facility layout better, I would have been able to respond a lot faster and been able to deal with the eventual player threats much better. Don't get me wrong. I am very much a seat of the pants kind of guy when it comes to situations. And I find violence of action is a very effective tool in video games. if you can find a way that you can hurl yourself at an opponent where they're not thinking you're coming from and just blitz, even if you don't have a full understanding of what's going on, you can often overwhelm them because they become confused and disoriented of what's going on. One of the big things I hear is that the folks are not even fighting the Valakar on servers. They're just drilling on the facility. One of our friends was scoping the place out for his org and saw 90 dudes swarming the place. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are just waiting in the facility for other people to do the Valakar so they can kill them. It's because it's a hotspot. Any hotspot is going to draw attention from people who want to do PvP combat. I know there are maps out there. Yeah, but it's a difference between looking at a map and running through it. You know? I've seen you many battles in Mech Warrior like that, Paul. Yes. Yes, I've done that many times in Mech Warrior. It's why I'm I forgot his name. In Mecca Break. It's why I'm the striker main. We plan on doing Stormbreaker bi-weekly, so that should help. All right, sounds good. Like, I now know most of the contested zones because I've done them so much. Oh, Automod got timed out there for Captain Jacaro, but it says, okay, so Paul, back when I played Graw 2 with friends, when a rando told us to stuff our plan up our ass, or started to run before everyone else was ready to spawn, and triggering many spawns, I would just end them with my 1911 or my grenade launcher. Yeah. Well, we're not just on Sundays. We also do Fridays. I just don't stream Fridays because I'm with Loken usually. Yeah, none of the freight elevators. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit today when it comes to the captain's table stuff. Is the freight elevators just aren't working, and that's part of the problem. Oh. The only problem with violence of action, throwing yourself into an enemy, is that if they are well set up, you're fucked. You basically have to hit them in a way where they're unprepared. But if they're prepared, then you're just feeded. All the Evo workarounds to try to revive the elevators did not work, alas. I don't know. They said they're going to be focusing on FE in the future, but yeah, violence of actions must always be used against an unprepared enemy. Yeah. If they're prepared, you're screwed either way. No, you just have to be better to plan them outplan them, I should say. It's just typically when I'm playing a game like an FPS game, you don't really have a lot of ability to plan out an FPS game. The only game that I can imagine that I know that has a bit of that planning process built in is Arma. You don't even really have that in Battlefield. It's too fast for you to plan. You often have to react rather than plan, which is why they're fun. All right, I'm going to use the restroom real quick, and then I'll unload and get done.
Drugs.
Oh yeah, the original Rainbow Six did that. Yeah. What kind of stuff does Lord do anyways? Our main goal is to preserve the past from the future. Protect the past from the future. Basically to gather the relics and other items that you can find in the game and preserve them. But we also do all of the other actions. We're a organization like anything else. We're sort of a casual organization, which is more designed around people showing up and hanging out. The officers really pull a lot of the work to do a lot of stuff done. But the main focus is just to have fun. So we'll do things like Stormbreaker, half the Line and Mine, the contested zones, that kind of thing. Laura is a proponent of what is called gunboat archaeology. We put the AR in archaeology. No. Planning is when my mining org drew out an entire org's fleet by dropping only two DPS leads on their main base. Then when they country dropped with 14 ships, we counter dropped Shadow Cartel. I don't know what any of that means, but okay. Yeah, we work with Imperial Arms. We might work with other groups as well. Those Valacar belong in a museum. Yes. Eve words. I am not familiar enough with Eve. I will say, speaking of Eve, if you are in Europe and you haven't already done so, please sign the Save Games petition. I haven't really promoted that a lot because I was like, yeah, it seems like a good idea, but never really thought about promoting it. Or Stop Killing Video Games is what it's called. So it's basically, you know how games will, there's some games which will close down and then just be unplayable. So like, oh yeah, we're not going to make this game anymore. And then because of the nature of its being like an online only game or a game with DRM or, a live service game, that you can just, like, when they shut down, the servers are done. And the petition basically says, it's for Europe only because it's to petition for the European Union. I think also for the UK. There's also a separate petition for the UK. But the idea is to not to force them to always support it, but simply to have a reasonable plan for end of life service. So when you finish those plans, when you finish the game is no longer going to be supported, and the servers go offline. There's some way to support the game's life after everything's shut down. Either giving players access to the code so they can do their own servers, having some sort of offline mode. It's on the side. Like Anthem, yeah. People who support the idea of stop killing games, but they do find the wording of the starting point to be kind of disingenuous for what can come out depending on what lawmakers take from the petition. Right now, there is nothing, though. That's the thing. As somebody who has to teach politics for a living, I can tell you that having something like this as a starting point is at least something. Whereas right now, there is nothing that's stopping it from happening. Oh, I thought I put down my... I didn't put down my... That's not good. Stop it. There is. Yeah. Ah! Yeah. I've been watching some of that stuff on that. But saying, basically this is the lightest of saying, hey, you're going to have some way of, have some plan for supporting it after it's finished. So, because it's about digital preservation, which is the idea of like, hey, every game deserves to be... Nope, that's not what I wanted. Like, deserve to be preserved because it's people's livelihoods, people's life work. And there's been great examples of that happening spontaneously. Like, there's a group that is remaking the old Command and Conquer FPS game. And EA is just like, yeah, you can do that. It's fine. We don't have no interest in it anymore because we don't really... Not RTS, FPS. Sorry, I said RTS. I meant FPS. The old Command and Conquer FPS game. Or it was like third-person shooter, but yeah. Renegade, yeah. There are far bigger problems, but you have to start somewhere. Yeah. There is a Command and Conquer third-person shooter game called Command and Conquer Renegade. It was made for the original Xbox, I believe. And it was a hybrid of an RTS and a third-person shooter. Was it PC? I thought it was Xbox. And they just remade System Shock 2 a while due to IP since changed hands so many times, like other things. Yeah. It was Windows 2002. Interesting. Paul, did you know that the Polaris has more hit points in the back of the ship and has more slim armor along the cross section in comparison? Didn't know that. It's interesting. No idea how the Halsey's doing. No. Oh, they may have ported eventually. I remember Renegade being in the box was in EA games when I worked in EA. Yeah, EB games when I worked in EB. It was GameStop at the time, but it's still GameStop, yeah. I sort of miss and don't miss going places like EB. They were nice, but you know, having worked for the company, it sucks. They're an awful company. How on earth are people finding more duping? Because this is a video game that people like to use to like make money and stuff like that. Not just like in-game money, but also use that in-game money from IRL money because they sell fucking AUEC. So the guy was running a whole C on Thursday. Okay. I guess it's still viable a little bit. I knew that it worked in one of the most recent patches. Come on. Out of there. I love the Star Lancer. That's why, like straight up, Execute has talked about how he's like, I don't understand why people hate me about the Star Lancer, hate my opinion on the Star Lancer. It's like, because everyone loves the Star Lancer, dude. Welcome to me 2 years ago when everyone would love the freaking Redeemer, and I'm like, I fucking hate this shit. Like, I don't care, it's great. But in this case, it's like, it's full aesthetics. People like the Star Lancer because it's use, but also because of its aesthetics. Oh, I loved Radio Shacks. Radio Shack was great. Old Radio Shack, where you could buy random obscure cables and gear. Yeah, apparently there's a big problem with hacking in Star Citizen, which I'm unaware of, but I don't doubt it. I remember when A1 did his big expose on a hacking group. Question, is it possible to overview the new time-based mission coming in 421? I have heard bits and pieces. I'll give it very quick. There's just different missions. One of them is like this, which is a cargo mission, pick up cargo from point A and deliver to point B. Another is to find a wrecked ship with cargo on it, take the cargo off, and deliver the cargo. And that will give you credit. And you don't actually have to deliver all the cargo. You just have to deliver a portion of the cargo that's on the ship. Then there's like, you can go mining for the items, and if you go mining for the items, you can turn in that mining stuff and get credit. So yeah. So it's mining, salvage, trade, and then acquire in some ways. It's all PvE, yeah. As far as I know, there's no PvP element other than maybe those wrecks where you can go fight over them, but what I thought was a shellfish allergy seems to not be that specific place. Just be a specific place's extra sauce spice with their shrimp. Oh, that's good to hear. As soon as I'm done with this, we're going to fire it up there, Red Monster. I'm just finishing up this last mission. You hate the Redeemer because it's ugly? I don't like the aesthetics either. But there's a lot of other legitimate reasons to not like it. Before everyone was like, oh, it's bad because CIG nerfed it. Can I drop this down safely? I believe I can. Because the edges are way over here. So yeah.
Welcome to the ASOP Vehicle Retrieval System. Your vehicle has been moved to us. Please visit.
No, they're not going to upcut the Hammerhead because the Hammerhead is not a anti-big ship, it's an anti-small ship. It punches down rather than punches up. Or even to the side. So it's always going to remain the same amount. Is 7. All right, thanks to main menu. All right, chat. I'm going to be gone. Well, I'll still be setting up. But if you're watching this on YouTube, when we start the stream on the Captain's Table podcast, I will end the stream here on YouTube, but it should automatically port you over there. So, anyways, be right back, chat. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, the sound was off. I just wanted to make sure y'all were paying attention. Also, I just wanted to make sure everyone could hear or could see their cameras and such. So we'll be back here in a few minutes. I might be a little bit late. We'll see. The plan is to go live here as soon as possible. If y'all want to. Couple more minutes left, chat, then we'll get started.